I wanted to just ask a little bit more on the productivity side. There's another data trend that we captured here that I would just love some help in understanding. For a very long time, we were seeing both Dropbox and Box not perform very well. And Dropbox, we understand, it's more consumer oriented, it's not enterprise, and the people that take our survey are enterprise focused. This, however, has us a little bit baffled. We had a huge reversal this time around to a first time we've seen Box actually have a positive spending intention score. Now, listen, it's nothing compared to Microsoft, and we could go over to the enterprise content management. It's the same too, but this is a huge reversal. And I am just trying to ask anyone that may have used it in the past or may currently use it, why we might be seeing such a reversal for Box. Any idea? And here's another aspect we broke out, that they now have a sign aspect.
The signing, yeah.
And also in enterprise content management, we see a very similar kind of trend where there's a huge reversal and rebound in their spending. So I'm just curious if you have any comments on the name. We'd love to hear it.
It's funny. One of the guys who used to work for me used to yell at Microsoft people all the time because we were, he said, instead of buying LinkedIn for 26 billion or whatever they spent, they should have bought Dropbox,
right,
and just put security around it, because we, like a lot of people, use OneDrive because it's free and it's good enough, but there's no, I use Dropbox personally, a paid license for that, but there, usability wise, there's no contest between Dropbox and OneDrive, for better or worse. But I think Box kind of, like you said, falls into that spot where we're not 365 customers, or OneDrive just doesn't cut it because it's SharePoint and there's different things and it's not as easy.
It's terrible.
So you need something. So people, if you have a choice and you're looking at it, Acelion used to be one. I don't know if you heard that name. That was huge with law firms, that you could do an appliance on-prem and then it would sync up to a cloud appliance, but they got hacked. And it was a fairly big, in the legal world, a fairly big hack. And I think everybody fled them pretty quickly because, that was the equivalent of like SolarWinds. And, all of a sudden people are like, don't we use that thing? Well, not anymore. If you're in my position, that's got to be your answer. And so Box is one of the only viable alternatives. I will tell you, legal is different in the world of ECM and document management, because there are legal specific document management systems that accounting professional services firms may use, like accounting or legal, but no one else does because our needs are special. But if you're a non professional services type of environment, and now you went from, okay, we're a file share company because hey, we just have here's an accounting folder, here's a sales folder, server, whatever, however it was set up, but it was, unstructured data for the most part, file shares. Now everybody's working from home, all over the world, wherever they are. Box is a much better option than, to become your ECM than, file shares are. Always accessible, redundancy, blah, 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 blah. So I think that is also a big reason, because the old fashioned file shares that everybody had weren't as attractive. I mean, in IT, we wanted to get rid of those things for years, but I think, even to the users and management of companies and firms, I think, they realize you need a better cloud-based solution for that stuff.
It was a great point you brought up too. Obviously, in legal and in medical, you have vendors that are specifically targeting your area. So I do understand that it might not be, the exact names you're using, but there is a concern around the security. And you mentioned that one system that got hacked. And I'm curious, when you put your CISO hat on, we've heard a lot about shadow IT with some of these type of names. Smartsheet is one that comes up with the shadow IT name. But I've also heard the similar things with Box. And I'm wondering, has Box done something from a security perspective that would make them a little bit more viable? Have you heard of anything on that nature?
So I know they've gotten better, as has Dropbox, overall security. But I think when you introduce it, like we also put in the middle of last year, we put in Okta for identity management, and single sign-on and multi-factor. After a couple of people, gave their info and got hacked. and we're talking someone from the management committee and our CMO. So after that, my boss just said, that thing you wanted to do, just go do it.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to do
Unfortunately,
a box,
it had to take that to get it, but yes.
Yep. Emailing 5,000 of our clients, with a virus, that'll do it. But I think if you have one of those type systems and then you're putting single sign-on and multi-factor on a box, for example, where you're controlling who can access it, there's more. I know their controls have gotten better as far as sharing. So, you can have default shares and, expirations and, all of those things that you can put in place for information governance. And those have gotten better too. But I think, as long as you're putting the appropriate protections in place, I think it's a viable option. And the business offerings are much different than the personal ones also.
Of course, right. Of course. A great point too, that maybe we've been following this trend for quite some time. We recently just did a panel about identity access and overall governance solutions. Okta just bought the biggest private competitor in Auth0. So they are out making a huge push now also into SailPoint's territory, which has been more that on-prem identity governance area. Okta's making a huge push, but maybe just as people have embraced more of this identity governance type of solution, maybe that makes the productivity apps that much more viable because you're doing the right governance around them. We don't have a choice, right? You have to support this hybrid workforce. So maybe what we're seeing there with Dropbox is more about the hybrid support and the security layer that we put around it than it is Dropbox itself.
Yeah, I agree with you. You made the comment, it makes it a more viable option, right? Because you got to do something. And if you can put it in place, we also, going back to Shadow IT, one of the things when we put in upgraded to the SIG functionality of Umbrella was, it discovers apps and you can actually do more. You could see them before with just Umbrella, but with SIG, you can actually act on them a little bit more. And, that's where you start to see, we don't block, we can't block Dropbox and Box completely because we can't control how our clients send us data.
Right.
But we tell people, don't log in. You can't create it with your own account. Do that with the firm email address. But you definitely still see that. And it happens all the time. Smartsheets, those are big vendor ones. That's the most we see on that one, by the way.
Yeah, that's
like it's not our people doing Smartsheets. It's like, okay, they're working with this vendor or this consultant or whoever, and that's where Smartsheets start popping up all over the place.
I had one of your CISOs peers. I did a deep dive on Smartsheet because everyone raves about the functionality. They think it's an absolute great tool. They love the project management aspect. They love how easy it makes spreadsheet analysis. But every CISO says, I can't control it because they always find a backdoor way into my organization. It's not us that's utilizing it. You get sent it through a third party or another vendor. And next thing you know, it's in my organization and everyone can just click and start their own license. And he's like, I turned around once and I had 100 users on basically on a program that he never sanctioned. So, he had to shut it down entirely. But I've heard that a lot. And it's a shame because if Smartsheet would find a way to maybe work with the enterprise instead of doing this backdoor sales model, that moniker of Shadow IT might go away.